Like if I'm eaten by something, I'll just wake up immediately. I just thought it was interesting when I followed up with this dreamer, they had mentioned that it was actually painful and they experienced a good portion of being mauled. Hello everyone, and thank you for joining us for the 14th episode of the Let's Dream podcast. Today we're just going over dream stories that our listeners have shared with us. And we'll get right into it. Lee, do you want to go ahead and go over the first story with us?
All right, we have the first story by Tomato Tornado Rex. He wrote, okay, so not sure how much sense this will make, but what I see is the outline of the entire state of Texas, and it's neon green. Inside of that shape of Texas is the regular NES controller. Going around the outline of the Texas state are Ritz crackers that are slowly spinning, and once they reach the northernmost part of Texas, they are slowly being eaten by Scrooge McDuck heads that are on a Ferris wheel instead of part people are sitting in, instead of the carts.
Yeah, that's a very bizarre image. I followed up with this listener, and they said that they had actually, they had ingested something prior to going to sleep, and that had definitely affected their dream, but it was just an interesting image altogether. That just goes to show you what you eat or whatever you ingest can definitely affect your dreams. Some people more than others.
You think it was cheese?
Whole cheese? I don't know. But, okay, so the next one is from the user Guntown Gangster. I thought this one was really interesting. The dream goes, so they said, I have a very meaningful dream that I experienced in the past. I was going through a very painful ordeal, physically painful. It seemed more like I was taken to this place rather than being in a basic dream environment. Not often am I able to become lucid while dreaming, but in this case, I was aware it was a dream and instantly knew it, and it wasn't like any dream I've had before. I was seemingly teleported to a place yellow and foreign, very similar to the landscape of Tatooine. I was standing next to a door and I thought about going in, and when I thought about it, I was instantly standing inside. It was poorly lit but spacious. In front of me was a black man sitting in the chair in front of a desk. He wasn't an ordinary person, although his facial features were unremarkable. He had long dreaded hair and a tan and beige sleeveless shirt with shorts. What was abnormal was his throat had a glowing sphere of energy in the middle. This happened long ago, and I don't remember fine details, like the colors, and I regret not drawing some when I had the dream. His flesh was somehow separated, but in a beautiful way that the sphere of energy was displayed. It was the same for both arms, his biceps and triceps, and they were split apart in 3 sections while his miraculous energy spun in between. His calves were like this too. When I first saw him, I was startled, but instantly at ease because I knew that this was a message that everything was okay. I awoke, startled, again, but filled with relief knowing that something very special had happened. And that's the end of that dream. So I often talk about how dreams can be just as realistic as real life, even though the things that are happening in the dream don't make sense within our waking reality. The thing that this dreamer talks about is something that I think is significant, is that in the dream that they described, let's say it wasn't like a very dramatic dream and it wasn't very cinematic. It was just like a regular dream, even though it seemed kind of sci-fi from the setting. The feeling that the dreamer felt in the experience was significant to them, even though it was actually, if you think about it, the whole scene was fairly mundane. They just walked in and they saw someone sitting down. Even though the person sitting down looked very sci-fi, the actual experience was non-eventful, but the feeling that the dreamer was experiencing was significant to them. And that's one thing that I always try to stress, is people should pay attention to the feelings they experience in the dream. But yeah, that was pretty much it for that one. I appreciate you for sharing that with us. Thank you.
Alright, so the next one we have from anonymous user. This dreamer told us, the dreamer told me of a dream where they were on a safari in Africa, and they were in the back seat of a jeep, and a buff driver with a mustache was his guide. Eventually, they get to a very thin bridge, one that's just the size of the jeep, and on the other side is a sleeping lion. The driver decides to get closer to the tiger for a better look, to give the dreamer the full safari experience. As they get closer to the lion, it wakes up, then it starts chasing after the jeep. The driver somehow turns the jeep around and they start trying to escape from the lion. However, the lion catches up to them quickly and they end up mauled. And that's the end of the dream.
Yeah, that was a very quick one. One thing I want to point out is this dreamer felt, they shared their dream story with us, but they wanted to be kept anonymous. Obviously, we'll do the same for anyone. We always try to respect people's wishes for privacy. If anyone wants to share a story but don't want people to know who their username or name was, obviously we'll respect. That's in that dream, the user ended up being mauled. And actually, I remember I often like to follow up with the people that send to the dreams to us, just to get more of an insight on the dream. So sometimes whenever you dream and you like something like this happens, you have like you don't feel anything, or you just you end up waking up out of being frightened. This dreamer had mentioned that they actually, it was a very painful experience. That I thought that was interesting. You know what I mean? Like, Lee, have you ever had a dream where it's like something scary happens or you get hit or something, and then you wake up?
Every time, I used to have a dream I was falling off a building, a skyscraper as a kid, and then as soon as I hit the floor, I'd fall off the bed and hit the actual floor.
Well, in your case, you actually physically fell off, but oftentimes, most of the time, I would say if something scary happens, or if I'm eaten by something, I'll just wake up immediately. I just thought it was interesting when I followed up with this dreamer, they had mentioned that it was actually painful and they experienced a good portion of being mauled. But okay, let's see. So on to the next one. We have another dreamer that requested to be kept anonymous. This dreamer had said that they were in a low-lit room with 3 hooded figures surrounding a table that had a bowl full of blood with a straw in it. To the left of these figures was a lady holding a large book that came up to her waist. She had a symbol of some sort on her forehead, and the book had the same symbol. The lady also had horns coming out of her forehead, and they were in the middle of some sort of ritual. And the dreamer just had the third-party experience of viewing all of this. And that's pretty much the end of the dream. I like the atmosphere in this one. I could just imagine the whole atmosphere. And thank you for sharing that one with us. These dreams, it's like you get a glimpse of it's almost like a scene from a movie. It's like something was going on and then you come in at some point and then you come out, and it's just interesting to see how dreams can be like that. Do you want to go over the next 2 since they're from the same dreamer?
The next 2 dreams are from Vestuvian Halo 56. This user had a dream they were falling from heaven into hell, and the grass was red and all the trees were dead.
So that one, we have illustrations to go along with all of these on our website. This one I thought was it was a very cinematic dream. I could just imagine the whole thing, and it all sounded very metal to me. I don't know about you, but
good old Lucifer experience,
falling from heaven into hell. That sounds like something. That sounds like a song from Death Clock or something. Yeah, I thought it was a really, really interesting. And I've actually had multiple people send me similar stories where they've dreamt something similar, where they fall from heaven or from heaven into hell. So I thought it was a really cool image, and the image that I made of it, I thought came out really well. Thank you for sharing that.
That's awesome. So we have the next story by the same user as well. And this was a dream where they were walking through a forest with very tall trees, and all of them were either dead or dormant. As they were walking through, in the near distance, they saw a very tall and slender figure with a deer skull on their head. The figure was so tall and skinny that it could easily have been mistaken for a tree.
Okay, so this is another very good kind of surreal imagery. And also, a lot of people have sent me, I've had at least 4 or 5 people send me dreams where they've seen people with skulls of different animals or just humans. So I don't know if that's maybe like a common dream theme. So that's one of the things that I really enjoy about people sending us a lot of different dreams, is that you see, it's almost like you see common themes in some dreamers. I wonder if it has something to do with if people have similar interests or similar experiences and then they end up having similar dreams. What do you think about that?
I think it's very possible that, certain symbols are kind of similar meanings kind of across the board generally.
Okay.
We can usually think of a skull meaning, pertaining something towards death. this dream was pretty eerie, right?
Yeah.
And in the forest where things, in the wild usually about to die or something.
Okay.
And there's like old Norse myth with a similar monster, you could say, dwelling in the deep forests too.
Okay.
That represented kind of a fear of the forest, or like a children's tale to let them know, hey, don't go out in the forest. It's dangerous, right?
Okay.
Something along those lines, anyway.
I see what you mean. Yeah, I can see how something similar to that can definitely translate across different cultures. Like I can see different cultures coming to a similar conclusion about that. So yeah.
But to this user specifically, it might have like a very specific experience or feelings that came with it that we don't know.
Yeah, I agree. But either way, yeah, thank you for sharing that with us, Vestuvian Halo 56. That was a really cool dream. And I'll read the next two just because it's from the same dreamer. They have really interesting dreams. I've read a couple of their dreams. This dreamer the username is Zapdos is here 87, and the first dream they shared is they dreamt that they were in a World War II battleground, and they were going through this old house at some point, and they see this old gray coat, and out of the gray coat, a bird skeleton looking thing sticks out its head and says Herbert. And that's pretty much it for the dream. And so this dreamer, actually, I thought it was really cool, they had sketched out what this creature looked like, and then they sent it to me, and I kind of made a rendition of it, and a watercolor rendition. I actually made two different sketches of this creature, and again, those will also be posted up on the website. And
this is kind of a wacky scene, but it's actually really morbid.
Yeah, when you think about the setting, it's that's another thing that I've noticed in my own dreams, at least. You know how and I don't know if it's just because it's influenced from movies and TV, but you know how when you watch TV, like if you pay attention, if it's a happy scene, it'll end up being like with more warm colors and like pleasant sounds, and if it's like a dark and scary scene, it'll end up being like cool colors and more desaturated colors and like darker and kind of like lower tones. It's almost like the scenery matches the vibe of the emotion behind it.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, so that definitely happens to me in dreams. Like, does that happen to you too?
There's definitely that sort of thing happening, and I think you're right about how basically your mind kind of feels these atmospheres in this certain way, because we all, we see it in plenty of movies and animations or in things we watch, and it definitely boosts and amplifies the experience, right?
Yes.
But also in general, like, people have been afraid of the dark since
forever.
Since yeah. Well, Perseus that gave man?
You mean
fire?
Prometheus?
Prometheus, yeah, that guy.
Yeah. So I mean, it's that's how the legend goes. I mean, but you know what's interesting though is sometimes I'll have dreams where it'll be like a fun and joyful. Like, this is one specific one that I remember. It was like this. It was me and my sister, and we were little, and it was like we were playing in a field, and it was like this kind of like fun and lighthearted scene, but we were like she was on drums and I was on guitar, and we were playing like some heavy metal, like Metallica. So that's one that was like, it did not, like, the music definitely did not match the scenery, and I don't know if that's just like like my subconscious, I don't know.
Maybe your subconscious just switched to satire genre that night.
Maybe. Let's go to the next dream. So this is also a dream from Zapdos is here 87. This was actually a really kind of interesting and involved dream. When the dream started, I was in a house that looked almost identical to my grandparents' house. However, nobody in this house was someone that I actually knew. There was a young girl that sort of reminded me of Dee Dee from Dexter's lab. There were also a bunch of adults there sitting at the dining room table. However, the dining room table in my grandparents' house usually could only fit about 6 people, and there were definitely a few more than that sitting around. I went over to the fridge and grabbed the Coca-Cola can from the bottom, where the cans usually are. After what I assumed to be 15 minutes or so, I decided to go back home. I immediately realized that my mother's car was not in the driveway, meaning that she wasn't in the house. Now, this was strange considering that if I'm at my grandparents' house, then my mother is too 99% of the time. I didn't know how I was going to get home, even though my dad's house was a 10-minute walk away. My parents are not together. Just then I remembered bicycles being in the metal shed in my grandparents' backyard, and I went to go see if they were still there. Surely enough, they were. When I was pulling the bike out of the shed, I noticed my friend walking out of a back door holding a soda can. As soon as we met eyes, I felt as if he knew this wasn't right either. My friend had never been to my grandparents' house before, so there's no way he could have been disturbed by the lack of family in the house, but yet he seemed disturbed. I asked him if he wanted to leave too, and he said yes. I got him out a bike that fit him, which was odd since the only bikes that were usually in the shed during the winter were mine and my younger brother's, both of which would be too small for him. We rode out on the wooden backyard gate and started riding down the sidewalk. And to be honest, I didn't even know where we were riding to. Midway through the ride, the dream reset. I was at the house again. This time my friend was by me. He noticed that just happened too. When we looked out of the window facing the front yard, we noticed a very thin vine running through the grass leading to the house, to the base of the tree near the curb. All of a sudden, two jelly-like semi-spheres slid out from under the tree and walked into the shade. These creatures disappear when they're in the shade. Now let me quickly describe these semi-spheres. They can fit into the palm of your hand. They get around like snails do, except much faster. And they're made of jelly-like mud and are green in color. They have this green glowing pulsating thing in the middle, which I believe is their heart, and where the flat base of the semicircle would usually be is where a mouth that looks like the mouth of a demigorgon is. Me and my friend went to get the bikes again and started riding. This time we decided to ride to my mom's apartment, which is 40 minutes away. I started to hear quiet, slimy sounds in the shadow. The semi-spheres are hiding. Suddenly, very far ahead, I see them move from the shadows on the left side of the street to the right side of the street. They travel in mobs. Me and my friend eventually make it to my mom's apartment, and I buzz up. The bikes seem to disappear since me and my friend didn't actually put them on the bike rack. I guess my brain didn't know what to do with them. Me and my friend both noticed the lack of bike's existence. When we get inside the apartment, my mom looked at me the same way my friend did when I first saw him in this dream. And then I woke up. I feel like this dream is only the beginning of the story since there's no actual conclusion. Maybe I'll dream about it again tonight. Who knows? The end. So that's
a big due to the dream.
Wow, that was such a complex dream.
I applaud this user's ability to be aware of all the detailed feelings they felt in it.
Yeah, and not only that, but to also continue to kind of stay conscious, because I don't know about you, but usually if I have like a dream transition, like from one scene to the next, even like if it's just kind of like a quick cutoff, like how him and his friend kind of like reset, I'll usually kind of like, it'll distract me for a moment or for the rest of the dream, and I'll forget what was going on. But this person stayed alert. I do want to point out that it's kind of interesting that even though they clearly they knew something was off, but they weren't able to go fully lucid. So that's a very good description of how sometimes being on the cusp of lucid dreaming feels like. It's like something's off and it's like you just can't quite pin it down, and then you just continue with the dream. And it's kind of frustrating when you wake up and you're like, oh, why didn't I go lucid?
That's really cool.
Yeah, no, I really thank you for sharing that dream. I really enjoyed reading it, and those creatures sounded very imaginative. There's also a sketch of them obviously put up on the website to go along with the story. And yeah, that's pretty much it for that one.
All right, so the next one is from an anonymous user as well. And they said, the dream had fallen from outer space onto the earth, but it was desolate and semi-post-apocalyptical. The dreamer had fallen with just his body, and there was no ship or anything else, and they had a reddish jacket along with some jeans, and that's it. The dreamer had mentioned that they remembered walking through and exploring the landscape. At some point, they ended up getting a velociraptor and saddling them and riding them like a horse in order to cross a river. And that's all they remembered from the dream.
Yeah, so yeah, that's another one where they dreamt that they fell to the earth. And I've had a couple of dreams like that too. And that's another common theme, is like people just dreaming about just falling like a meteor just with their body onto the earth.
Did they ever mention that they feel something on impact or anything like that?
No. So that's this one. This one, I don't remember them saying anything about actually feeling the impact. And that's the other thing that's kind of strange about dreams. It's like sometimes you can feel every little movement, and sometimes there's a lot going on and you barely feel it, even though you're there experiencing it. But I thought that one was really cool sounding. It's like somehow you find yourself on Earth, and then you end up domesticating, or at least to an extent, you use a velociraptor to get around. That'd be pretty epic. So yeah, thank you for sharing that with us. So the next dream is from a user Solo He for Arts. The dream goes, I had this crazy dream where after falling down an elevator with some people that were complaining about how elevators sucked, they were saying, what are we standing on is held up by some weak-ass cables. I got transported into another world with a bunch of people, and then after some days of us messing around, namely in a football field, some squids came and kidnapped us. And then the dream changed to me getting in a beach house with my family and some people in the neighborhood getting invaded by some weird goblin minions. Then when I got out of the house, I remember being lucid, and at that moment, a witch talked to me and told me to stop bothering her. Of course, I didn't, and I made it rain. And then the dream changed to me being with my mom in the store with everything I wanted. And then the store burned down because Shrek's grandpa was getting denied entry. And then the voiceover thought of a moral saying to never miss an opportunity to get you what you want. And then the dream changed to some statues of people in Disneyland, including me, falling down in holes that opened between us into a meaty, teethy hole. They all fell down in a gigantic pink bubble that we had to defend from the minions with an epic voiceover. The only part of the voiceover that I remember is, quote, then the spicy chili team changed everything as they got into the culinary team side of the reel. They discovered that the meat monsters exploded in contact with the chili pot, and this changed everything as they did it. The dreamer goes on to point out that there were no spelling mistakes, and this is actually how the voiceover made the announcement. So wow, there is a lot going on in that dream.
Why do Pixar and Disney even try to write? They should just dream their stories together.
So this one was actually really entertaining, and I ended up making a short animation out of this. Well, it's not an animation, it's kind of like a storyboard animation to go along with each parts of the dream. But yeah, what an interesting dream. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I actually enjoyed really reading this one.
What do you make of the continuous shifting into other dreams, I guess?
See, I don't know, man. Like sometimes I really think people need to pay attention what they eat before they go to bed, because and it may be just me. I mean, I'm sure it doesn't translate to everyone, but if I take vitamin B5 as a supplement, I guarantee you I will have some crazy dreams like that. And I remember the last time I took vitamin B5, it kept shifting from these very intense dreams to these calm dreams where it was like pandemonium and everything was burning down, and then all of a sudden you're in a field, and then all of a sudden the field transforms into like an enormous symbol, and it was just like really up and down. So I don't know. I mean, I think what you eat can play a role on how, especially if it doesn't agree with you, it's like disturbing you. But
yeah, but this would be an example of like kind of hyperactive dreaming state.
It could be. I mean, you never know.
Yeah. It seems very active.
Yeah, really entertaining though. I like.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever experienced that personally though. That's why I find it more interesting, I guess.
And I honestly, I like how it gets really silly at, like when it's like they got kidnapped by squids and then a store burned down because Shrek's grandpa was denied entry. That's That's very specific. That's like oddly specific. Like the store burned down because of this reason. I'm like, what? But entertaining. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah. All right. So the next user we have is Zoom Shrooms. Once I dreamt that I was walking through the city while tripping on LSD. The buildings and people were black silhouettes, and the sky was the most magnificent pink and orange colors. The clouds were purple and bouncy. The silhouetted people were long and wavy, sort of intimidating. No features, literally just black shades. The buildings were tall and looming, in contrast to the beautiful sky. The sidewalk is a long path into the horizon in front of me.
So this one was actually they bring up something a very good point. I don't know if our listeners have ever thought about it, but have you ever had a dream, Lee, where you eat something in the dream and then it alters your experience within the dream?
Not that I can recall.
Okay, because I've talked to people that, and personally I've had dreams like this too, where it's like, let's say you eat something, like an alien gives you like a sphere or like a ball of energy to eat. Or one time I actually had a dream that I was eating sentient polygons, and they ended up giving me like superpowers to shoot energy beams out of my hands. That was a really weird dream, but
that sounds awesome.
It was a very weird dream. But I've talked to people on some of the Discords and Reddit where it's like, if you're lucid dreaming, try to lucid dream that you're taking like LSD or like some kind of a hardcore drug, just to see how it affects your dream. It probably won't be how the same substance would affect you in real life, but just to see the experience that you can have within the dream is interesting.
I like how the perspective of this user had like changed drastically. Just the world. Right.
Yeah. Exactly. There's a lot of fun experiments people can do in the dream realm. That being one of them. And yeah, thank you, Zoom Shrooms, for sharing that with us. So the last dream that we have here is from another anonymous user. So the dream started with an old man in front of the dreamer, and he asked them to defeat the 4 elements, but did not explain why the dreamer had to do it. All 4 elements were in the form of origami dragons. The dreamer defeated the fire and ice dragons, and the fire dragon had attacked with fire, and the ice dragon attacked with ice. However, the water dragon went to fight the dreamer, and it attacked with mind control. And when it did that, everything turned white, and then the dreamer woke up. So that's a very short and to the point dream, but
I think the user got gypped from the rest of the dream by that dragon.
I wonder why they associated water with mind control. It's like the other 2 made sense, and then all of a sudden mind control.
I think it's a curveball.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy about dreams. It's like they're very unpredictable. Like you think the dream is going one way, and then they could just completely be just out of the blue. And actually, this one, I really like this dream, so I ended up doing a short storyboard animation of this one, which will also be up on the website.
Yeah, it sounds really cool.
Yeah, and all of these dreams were very interesting, and I love hearing the dreams that people sent to us. That's pretty much it for the dreams. Did you have any closing thoughts, Lee?
Just to thank everyone for submitting their dreams to us. We really appreciate it, and we're getting a lot more followers as we continue to do episodes. And thank you here for supporting and sharing dreams with us.
Yeah, and if anybody does want to actually send us a dream, they can do so either at contact@letsdreampodcast.com or any of our social media. Whether it's Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. It's Let's Dream Podcast is for all of those, or Twitter. It's Let's Dream Pod for Twitter. Or if you just want to leave a comment on the actual podcast, whatever works, let us know. And we always try to make something visual to go along with the dreams, especially the really interesting dream characters. And that's pretty much it. We thank you guys for listening, and we'll see you next time.